Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bell to Bell. I'm your host, Nick Belsky. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/Nick Belsky, or you can find us at Bell to Bell on Spotify. This is just going to be a professional wrestling podcast where I share my opinions based on what I see on WWE, what I see on sometimes AEW, sometimes what I see on the independent scene, maybe TNA since they've had a big week. But all in all, just going to be a platform for me to have a little bit of fun, talk with some of my friends about what they're seeing, and just kind of experience professional wrestling together, which is kind of the name of the game nowadays when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to YouTube content production, whatever you want to call it. We're here to have some fun and have some discussions about the WWE. And whenever you're talking about professional wrestling as a whole, the biggest thing that everybody's talking about right now is Raw on Netflix. And the WWE has kicked off their Netflix era with a bang. They're 3 episodes in. The debut was great, but we all expected the debut of Raw on Netflix to be great. It was like a movie. The Rock came out. Undertaker was there. Hulk Hogan got booed out of the building. That was interesting. Triple H kicks things off as well. We all expected that to happen. But as Triple H said, following that event, the hardest thing possible is following it up. Monday Night Raw is a weekly episodic television program. They can't have legends on every single episode. So how are they going to follow it up? That's why I waited to do this and start this program 3 weeks after the start of Raw on Netflix. I wanted to see what some of the fallout was. I wanted to see how they followed it up. And I think they've done a very, very good job. Now let's go back to January 6th, because a lot of people were questioning, why was Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa the opener? Why wasn't that the main event? They are touting Roman Reigns as the main act of WWE. Why didn't they close off their very first show on Netflix with Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa? And I think, simply put, it was an ingenious idea, because everything in this era, everything leading up to WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas, is building off of Roman Reigns. Solo storyline on Smackdown with the new bloodline, everything that's happening with Jacob Fatu going forward, everything that's happening with Tama Tonga going forward, everything that's happening with Solo Sikoa going forward. That's all built off of Roman Reigns. Drew McIntyre's current arc, going after everybody in the new bloodline, or the old bloodline, I should say. It's all built off of Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins trying to get to the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWE Championship before Roman Reigns can. Well, clearly built off of stopping Roman Reigns. And Kevin Owens, need I say more, needing to end Cody's reign before Roman Reigns can get to the belt. Everything in this current era is being built off Roman Reigns. So I loved the fact that they kick it off with, obviously, the video package, and then The Rock comes out because he's part of the board of directors. But the first match, the first in-ring action that we see is Roman and Solo. And it was a good match. It was a tribal combat match, which means there was shenanigans that happened. And I thought overall it was a Roman Reigns match, which means I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I love the fact that coming off of it, all that Roman Reigns has done is put out a little vignette saying he's going into the Royal Rumble, and everything else has built off of that moment. They know they have a guy in Roman that they can build off of for many, many years, and they're starting it really quickly at the beginning of the Raw Netflix era. Now, outside of Roman Reigns and outside of those storylines, there's been a couple other things that have happened and caught my attention over the first couple of weeks. For one, 3 phenomenal main events for Raw on Netflix so far. You had CM Punk defeating Seth Rollins in a match that had been building up since CM Punk returned to WWE. I mean, everybody saw the reaction of Seth Rollins right after War Games in 2023, and they had been building that for over a year. Of course, part of that is due to the fact that CM Punk went off on the shelf with an injury through most of 2024, but at the end of the day, the fact that they reserved that and then burned that for the first Raw on Netflix as the main event, I thought it lived up to the hype. I thought it was a very good match. Great storytelling on both ends and a good finish. So I liked that one. And then you have Damian Priest defeating Finn Balor in a street fight. I loved that because that's the culmination of a storyline that started back in SummerSlam. And honestly, that's a storyline that had been going for more than that much time because of how much, Finn Balor weaved in his opportunities at the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and why when Damian Priest was Mr. Money in the Bank, Senior Money in the Bank, he screwed Finn Balor. So this is a story that had been waiting for a payoff for a long time. Both of those guys delivered in a big way. In fact, the funniest thing and the most memorable moment to this point in Raw on Netflix is probably Damian Priest wheeling Finn Balor on a stretcher back down the ramp in the way that Finn Balor perfectly sold rolling back into the ring. I mean, the way that worked out, so many things could have gone wrong. I loved it. I loved everything about this street fight. I love the fact that they held Finn Balor off of TV for this week. I don't know about Damian Priest not being on TV this week to kind of take advantage of that bump, but I did really like that main event as well. And then, of course, last night's main event or Monday's main event, depending on when you listen to this, Seth Rollins defeating Drew McIntyre, not only giving you a WrestleMania 40 rematch as the main event of Monday Night Raw, but creating intrigue for the Royal Rumble. I thought they did a really good job building Sammy through Monday's episode, getting him prepped for the Royal Rumble, because right now, Sammy's probably the least intriguing name that is declared. You have John Cena, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, who's gotten a lot of TV time. I've enjoyed that so far in 2025. And then Sami Zayn, who not only comes out and declares, who has a good backstage segment with Seth Rollins. And then, of course, we see how he ends it. Haluva kick to Seth Rollins following a roll-up victory for Rollins over Drew McIntyre. They're selling the Royal Rumble in a very good way. And they've sold Raw on Netflix in a very good way as well, because I've enjoyed all three main events. They got new women's champions as well. Rhea Ripley. I think she's better as a champion than she is chasing. So whenever you're trying to build up to WrestleMania here in the early portion of 2025, of course you're better off with Rhea Ripley holding gold around her waist. Lyra Valkyria debuts the Intercontinental Championship as she wins that tournament. I really enjoy what they're doing both on SmackDown with the U.S. title and on Raw with the Intercontinental title in the women's divisions. I mean, it is driving way more meaningful stories for this division. The storyline we saw with Dakota Kai leading into that finals matchup, the storyline that we're seeing with Lyra Valkyria, who since coming up to the main roster has been really good in tournament settings, right? Great in Queen and King of the Ring tournament. And then she kind of faded into the back a little bit, was kind of shoehorned into certain rivalries. Now another tournament comes around. She wins the IC title. A great talent that now has a storytelling driver in the Intercontinental title around her waist. I didn't hate PFC versus Damage Control as far as that being a rivalry, that being a battle. But at the end of the day, it was very repetitive. I think having this IC title on Raw, I think having the women's US title on SmackDown is going to help drive more meaningful stories for the mid card of the women's division. So I love the fact that they've introduced them. And so far, I think they've done a phenomenal job with them. And the last thing I'll bring up before we get into a couple other things here on the debut episode of Bell to Bell, how can you not talk about Penta, right? The debut of whatever you want to call him, Pentagon Jr., Penta El Cero Miedo. They're just calling him Penta on Raw. Again, it's a very WWE thing to shorten it to the least common denominator. But hey, either way, the presentation, the in-ring ability, shoot, even the promo that he cut in San Jose after his debut, everything that they've done with Penta has been great. 2 matches in 2 weeks, defeats Chad Gable in what was a phenomenal match. Gable sold that Mexican destroyer like death. I think that is one of the, again, talk about marquee moments so far in 2025. That one, top of the list, probably right below the, street fight between Balor and Priest. But Gable versus Penta, great match. Pete Dunne versus Penta, great match. The question again, and if you're sensing a theme here, you should, where does he go from here? Does he continue to just have great matches week in and week out? I'm not going to complain about that because I enjoy watching Penta matches. But what story is he going to get himself involved in first? Because right now, it feels like Chad Gable's going off to a different story with trying to figure out how to fix his luchador problem. It doesn't seem like that's going to directly tie back to Penta. Pete Dunne's story has been interesting and has been told over the last handful of months. I don't think Penta's going to get involved with that. So the question is, where does he go? I mean, in a week and a half, we have the Royal Rumble. Should Penta be in the Royal Rumble? Unequivocally, undoubtedly, in my eyes, yes. Should Penta be on WrestleMania in a couple of months? I would say yes, but my question is, against who? Right? I don't know if they're going to be able to build him to a one-on-one rivalry, one-on-one feud at WrestleMania in that short amount of time. I just don't see that happening. But I'd love to see Penta versus Braun Breaker at some point. Whenever he comes back from injury, I'd love to see Penta versus Ilya Dragunov at some point. But which of these fights, which of these feuds is good enough for him to kind of build up to on WrestleMania? Maybe Braun Breaker. Maybe the IC title is the way that they get him onto WrestleMania. But I think no matter what, the early returns on Penta have been extremely fascinating. I've really enjoyed the way that they added to his presentation. They added the pyro to his intro on Monday, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because this is a very exciting talent. This is a very interesting talent, and I want to see how they use him, because I don't think that they've utilized luchadors all that well of late. Look no further than Dragon Lee. Look no further than what they've done on Smackdown with a guy like, I mean, he's not really a luchador, but, you know, Santos Escobar, how he's kind of cooled off a lot. That style of wrestling, to me, is one of the best. So I want to see them utilize Penta as much as humanly possible, and as well as humanly possible going forward. So far, so good. But again, where does he go from here? What storyline does he get himself intertangled with from here? That's what I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. Let's move over to a quick segment that's not really reactionary and more so just opinion based. And I want to know your beliefs, your thoughts. So let me know in the comments when I get to this one. But it's a new year, which means there's a lot of opportunity. There's a fresh slate for everybody in WWE, including the decision makers. So with that in mind, I wanted to just share my opinion here on this debut episode of Bell to Bell. Who are 5 WWE superstars that deserve a massive push in 2025? Now, a massive push could mean many different things when I'm talking here. And it doesn't all mean, hey, they need to go win a world championship. But in their lane, I think they deserve a push. Let's start at number 5. What happened to Austin Theory's story with Grayson Waller? The split has been teased. The split has garnered reactions in different cities, and the split has never been followed up on. They were off TV for a little while, and then they recently reappeared and lost in a pseudo tag titled tournament on SmackDown. And that was it. So where do they go from here? I think Austin Theory needs to have that feud with Grayson Waller. I think Austin Theory needs to split from Grayson Waller and then see where it takes him. I mean, the kid is immensely talented. He sells better than most in the entire company. And I think that when you see where he's been the last year, you see the spots that he's been placed in over the past year, they're all seeming like tests, right? Austin Theory was in the ring with The Rock last year. He was in the ring at SummerSlam with Jelly Roll, and he put Jelly Roll over in a way that not many others could, because of his athleticism and because of the way that he was able to just handle that situation, not to mention many others. It seems like if somebody from outside of WWE comes in and you're trying to make them look good on television, you put them next to Austin Theory, and Theory makes them look great. Now, WWE does have a history of taking their best sellers and not giving them appropriate pushes. Dolph Ziggler fell into that for years. I don't want that for Theory. I don't want that for Austin Theory, because I think everybody was starting to catch on to that potential feud, that potential breakup between him and Grayson Waller. Let's see it. Let's get the payoff, and let's start Austin Theory 2.0 on the WWE main roster. I think it's past time. Number 4, this guy has been in the title picture a bit the last 2 years. And when I say that, I mean the world title picture. Feuded with Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship a while back. Got into the title picture against Gunther for Saturday night's main event return. That's Finn Balor. Finn Balor has not won a singles title since 2022. Now, personally, I don't think he needs to win a title, but I do think he needs to be in main event feuds after the eventual split with Judgment Day, right? This has been, again, another drawn out story. The WWE loves long-term storytelling. I think once Finn Balor officially splits, and whether that's just him on his own or whether that's him and JD McDonough tag team in the entire Monday Night Raw roster, I think that Finn Balor needs to be in more main event feuds. That's feuds against CM Punk. That would make it interesting for me. That's feuds against Jey Uso, which would make it interesting. That's another feud against Seth Rollins, maybe a feud against Drew McIntyre, or maybe you move him over to SmackDown. And he feuds with guys like Cody. He feuds with guys like Randy Orton when he comes back. Maybe he gets into a feud with Roman Reigns. Again, that's a little harder. Reigns is a little bit more untouchable. They need to be a little bit more careful about who feuds with Roman Reigns. But regardless, I think Finn Balor deserves a push. I think what he's done in his time with the Judgment Day has been vastly entertaining. Have I enjoyed watching him win tag gold with JD McDonough? Yes, because I think that elevates JD McDonough. But I would love to see Finn Balor be out on his own a little bit more and get that push. Number 3, let's go to the tag division. The New Day hasn't held tag titles in 4 years. They're Hall of Famers. They needed something new. They needed a switch up, and they got the switch up, right? They had the heel turn. And since then, where's the follow-up? The Raw tag division is in desperate need of a bump. SmackDown got it with Motor City Machine Guns and with the heel turn of DIY and with the increased utilization of teams like Los Garza, of teams like Pretty Deadly, of teams like the Street Profits. Raw needs a bump in their tag division. Judgment Day finally said they're going after the titles. They get a title match next week. Great. War Raiders are holding the belts. I like that team. American Made on Monday finally said they're going after the tag titles, because why else would you watch the Creed brothers if not for the tag division? A title run, though, from a heel New Day would do wonders for those titles. I still back the fact and back the idea of splitting up the tag titles at WrestleMania last year. The follow-up since then, though, has been disappointing. SmackDown starting to get a revitalization. I think giving New Day a push and giving them the titles as heels would do wonders for that division, would do wonders for the New Day and this new look, this new feel of the New Day, and would do wonders for the entire Raw tag team division. Number 2, this guy was the first round pick of Friday Night SmackDown. And since then, he's had amazing matches with pretty much everybody on SmackDown. Was great in the best of 7 storyline with Andrade that eventually weaved its way into the United States title picture. But I think Carmelo Hayes is going to have a big 2025. I think he needs a big 2025 because he came up to the main roster. He got that push. He got that bump as the first round pick. Since then, not very many big wins. Like I said, I liked the feud with Andrade. I think it carried well. I think it showcased him well. And honestly, whenever they had that triple threat between Andrade and LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes for the US title, that's when I finally started to buy into the LA Knight United States title reign. And then, of course, it immediately ended after that with the return of Shinsuke Nakamura. But I think that it should be a big year for Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown. I don't think he needs to change brands. I think he just needs to start taking things over on Friday nights. And I think it starts with him dethroning Shinsuke Nakamura. I like this new version of Shinsuke. I like the fact that he came back and almost immediately got the title put on him. But I do think that maybe it's a WrestleMania change. Maybe it's a first Smackdown after WrestleMania change. But I do think a long United States title reign for Carmelo Hayes is needed in 2025. So he is at number 2. And at number 1, this guy was part of the biggest feud in 2025. He just was the manager, technically. I guess you could call him that. You could call him a lot of other things in that feud, but it's Dominic Mysterio. Not much in-ring to speak of over the last really several months. He did have that quick storyline where he was saying, maybe I should go after the World Heavyweight Championship, and then obviously lost to Damian Priest, and that furthered the Judgment Day storyline with Damian Priest. Guy still gets crazy heat. He's young. He has time. There's no rush, but after he had that North American title reign a couple years ago at this point, there hasn't really been much to speak of. His WrestleMania match last year was just a thrown together tag team. Didn't like that. I think that Dominic Mysterio has done a great job on TV. I think he's done great character work. Obviously was part of that big feud between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. He was the inflection point of that feud and carried it while Rhea Ripley was injured. But I think it's time he gets some in-ring work. I think it's time that he gets a push in the ring and get some opportunities here in 2025. So there's my list. Who do you think deserves a push in 2025? For me, the list goes Austin Theory at 5, Finn Balor at 4, New Day at 3, Carmelo Hayes at 2, and then Dominic Mysterio at number 1. If you like my list, let me know. If you hate my list, let me know. And let me know in the comment section who you think deserves a push in 2025. Before we go, got a big pay-per-view coming up. I guess PLE or whatever they're calling Saturday night's main event. It's an extra show that's technically on cable, so it's not a PLE, but it is because they are putting massive amounts of title matches on it, and it's all been very weird. So Saturday night's main event, part 2, this time emanating from San Antonio this Saturday. We got 4 matches as of right now. I would imagine a match gets added, even though we do have the contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens for their battle at the Royal Rumble with Shawn Michaels and being the mediary. But we got 4 matches right now. We're going to go through each of them. I'm just going to give predictions. And again, let me know in the comment section, who do you think wins any of these matches? Let's start with a big battle between Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu. I got to look this up, but this is the first real opportunity that Jacob Fatu is going to have in a singles spot. He has been primarily a tag team wrestler since joining the New Bloodline, and he has one singles match. He's 1-0, but he has one singles match since joining the WWE, and that was the day before Survivor Series War Games, where he won the advantage match against, I believe, Jey Uso. So he's 1-0. He's going to be 2-0. I mean, the obvious choice here is to have Jacob Fatu win. What good does it do to give Braun Strowman a victory over Jacob Fatu? And I don't see any reason that somebody's going to come in and cost Fatu. Maybe LA Knight. Maybe it's somebody else. But at the end of the day, Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman, the easy choice here is Jacob Fatu, his first real big opportunity in a single spot that's not just getting the advantage for a War Games match. It's bigger than that. It's his first opportunity, and he's starting to break out here over the last couple of weeks. The storyline is shifting a little bit between Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, so it only furthers it if Jake gets a big win. So I'm going to go with Jacob Fatu over Braun Strowman. Let's move over to the Intercontinental title match that's set up between Sheamus and Braun Breaker. Sheamus trying to become the Grand Slam champion. Braun Breaker trying to legitimize his second Intercontinental Championship run. He's been kind of quiet over the last couple of weeks. Really, over the last couple of months, he's been quiet. Saturday night's main event, part 1. Big win for him over Sheamus, over Ludwig Kaiser. And he hasn't fought since. He hasn't wrestled since. So now, when I look at this title match, would it be great to see Sheamus get rewarded for all the work that he's put in, for all the bangers that he's put on over the last calendar year on Monday Night Raw? Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be a phenomenal moment for Sheamus. But Braun Breaker needs to hold that till at least WrestleMania. It's just what's necessary. He has been booked from early on as a dominant force. Let him be that dominant force. He's been picking up wins over solid veterans. Helps establish that. So if he does that against Saturday, against Sheamus, then it helps establish him as a dominant Intercontinental Champion, because after Gunther lost it at WrestleMania, Sammy had a decent reign and then passed it back and forth with Braun Breaker. You need somebody to kind of legitimize it once again, and I think Braun could be that guy. I don't want to see interference from Ludwig Kaiser, but do we really expect that? Do we expect Ludwig Kaiser to just go silently into that good night? No, I personally don't. But I do think Braun Breaker gets the win. I don't think it's thrown out with a disqualification, but I do think that he wins after a distraction between Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus. So I'm running with Braun Breaker. I'm going to say in the first of 3 title matches, it is a retention for Braun Breaker. Let's go to the next match and the latest match to be added to the card for Saturday night's main event. Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. I don't see this Rhea Ripley title reign lasting too long. Just a gut feeling. It doesn't feel like something that's going to kind of follow up and pick up where her last reign left off, right? She won it at WrestleMania 39. She held it through WrestleMania 40 and then dropped it due to injury a week or two after WrestleMania. I don't see this being a repeat or a continuation of that title run. To me, it feels like she might be dropping it at WrestleMania. With that said, she's not dropping it at Saturday night's main event a week and a half later, specifically not to Nia Jax, who just finished a world title reign over on SmackDown. So I don't know where they go from here. I don't know what the plans are for Rhea Ripley. Maybe a WrestleMania 39 rematch. They've been talking about Charlotte potentially returning. That could be on the docket. If not, maybe we could get a little crazy and get Jordynne Grace straight to the main roster, because they've already utilized her at NXT. Seems like her time in TNA has come to a close. Maybe she debuts on the main roster, starting with a second consecutive appearance in the Royal Rumble on February 1st. But either way, we're looking a little too far ahead here. Women's World Championship, Ripley versus Jax. Riding with Rhea Ripley. I just don't think she's going to drop the belt after finishing a year-long story with Liv Morgan to finally regain it and capture it on the first episode of Raw on Netflix. So I'm riding with Rhea Ripley. Before that, I have Braun Breaker and I have Jacob Fatu, and that leaves us with one final matchup for Saturday night's main event. Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso at that, versus the World Heavyweight Champion, the Ring General, Gunther. This is Jey's, if I'm not mistaken, 3rd world title match since leaving the Bloodline officially. He wasn't going to beat Roman in 2023. It just wasn't going to happen. He wasn't beating Damian Priest at Backlash right after Priest had cashed in the previous, PLE on WrestleMania. He's probably not going to beat Gunther here either. Eventually, I expect Jey Uso to pick up a world championship, but I just don't think it happens at this point. They have booked Gunther like they booked Braun Breaker, or like they want to book Braun Breaker, as an unbeatable force. They had the whole storyline with, well, he got too cocky and it cost him at Crown Jewel. And then he had to kind of regain his footing, and he did that at Saturday night's main event whenever he beat both Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I don't think they follow that up with a match where he falls short to Jey Uso. I just don't. Now, for Jey's side of things, can he lose clean? Can he afford to lose clean again? I understand. Late in 2024, he won the Intercontinental title, and then the new Bloodline cost him the Intercontinental title. Can he afford to lose clean to Gunther on Saturday? Probably. It leads him into the Rumble, saying the fastest way to get back in that spot, because he was so close, is to just 1 week later enter the Rumble and try to throw 29 other superstars over the top rope. So can he lose clean? Probably. But I think there's a non-zero chance that this kind of rabid pack of hyenas new Bloodline, with just Jacob Fatu, who's already going to be on the show, and Tama Tonga, say, hey, don't worry, Solo. We'll take this into our own hands. We'll make sure Jey doesn't become a world champion. I could see that happening. Would I like to see it? No, I prefer to see Gunther be booked as a dominant champion. Jey put up a valiant effort, but Gunther wins again and moves on to the road to WrestleMania as a dominant world heavyweight champion. I think it could go one of two ways. And I think that at the end of the day, WWE is going to make Gunther look strong. So I think he wins clean. I'm just saying there's a non-zero chance that Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga get involved in some way, shape, or form. But that's my thoughts on Saturday night's main event. I got Jacob Fatu, I got Braun Breaker, I got Rhea Ripley, I got Gunther, all retaining, all winning on Saturday night in San Antonio, Texas. But hopefully everybody enjoyed this first episode of Bell to Bell with me, your host, Nick Belsky. Make sure, again, that you check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Nick Belsky, or you can find us on Spotify by simply searching Bell to Bell. That's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.